Maya sat in the corner of the crowded college cafeteria, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her worn notebook. Around her, groups of students laughed and talked, their voices creating a steady hum of conversation. She had always been the quiet one, the girl who preferred books to parties, practice rooms to social gatherings. Her dark hair fell across her face as she sketched musical notes on the paper before her, completely absorbed in her own world. The performing arts college she attended was filled with talented students. Everywhere she looked, there were dancers with perfect postures, singers with powerful voices, and musicians who seemed to play instruments as naturally as breathing. Maya had dreamed of coming here since she was a little girl, watching performances on television with wide eyes and an eager heart. But now that she was actually here, doubt crept into her mind almost every day. She came from a small town where opportunities for proper training were limited. Her family ran a modest grocery store, and money was always tight. While other students had trained at prestigious academies and worked with famous teachers, Maya had learned music from online videos and a retired music teacher who lived 3 streets away from her house. Mr. Kapoor had been kind enough to teach her for whatever small amount her parents could afford, often accepting homemade meals instead of payment. The announcement on the college notice board had caught everyone's attention that morning. The annual performance competition was approaching, and this year, it was bigger than ever. A famous director would be attending, someone who had worked on major productions and discovered several stars. The winner would get a scholarship and a chance to perform at a professional venue. Maya had read the notice 3 times, her heart beating faster with each word. She wanted to participate. Every fiber of her being wanted to stand on that stage and show what she could do. But fear held her back like heavy chains. She had heard the whispers, seen the sideways glances. Some students had already started preparing in groups, their confidence radiating through the hallways. Maya knew she would be competing against people who had been groomed for success since childhood. During her afternoon class, Professor Sharma announced the competition details. The room buzzed with excitement as students immediately began discussing their plans. Maya remained silent, her pen hovering over her notebook. Next to her, Rhea and Karan were already making plans. Rhea was one of the most popular students, daughter of a famous choreographer. Her performances always received standing ovations. Karan came from a family of classical musicians and could play 5 instruments fluently. After class, as Maya gathered her books, she overheard Rhea talking to a group of friends near the door. The words stopped her in her tracks. Rhea was discussing who might participate in the competition, dismissing several names with casual cruelty. Then someone mentioned Maya's name, probably having seen her lingering near the notice board that morning. Rhea laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the air. She said Maya was sweet, but completely out of her depth. She questioned how someone from a small town with no proper training could possibly compete at this level. Karan added that Maya seemed nervous even during regular classes, so performing under pressure would probably make her freeze completely. Another voice chimed in, suggesting that some people should know their limitations and not embarrass themselves publicly. Maya felt her cheeks burn hot. She pretended to search for something in her bag, giving them time to leave, before she walked out. The hallway seemed longer than usual as she made her way to the exit, their words echoing in her mind. She had heard such things before, subtle comments about her background, her clothes that were not as fashionable, her lack of connections in the industry. But hearing it so clearly, so dismissively, hit differently. That evening, Maya sat in her small rented room, staring at the cracked ceiling. Her roommate had gone home for the weekend, leaving her alone with her thoughts. The room was tiny, barely fitting 2 beds and a shared desk, but it was all she could afford. On her wall hung a poster of a famous performer she admired, someone who had also come from humble beginnings. She had put it up on her first day, a reminder of why she was here. She picked up her phone and almost called her mother, but stopped. Her parents had sacrificed so much to send her to this college. Her father worked double shifts at the store. Her mother took on tailoring work late into the night. They believed in her dream even when they did not fully understand it. She could not tell them about her doubts, about the mocking words, about how small she felt in this big competitive world. Instead, Maya opened her music app and put on her headphones. She listened to a piece she had been working on, one she had composed herself during sleepless nights. The melody was simple but honest, filled with emotions she could not express in words. As the notes flowed through her ears, something shifted inside her. The hurt from Ria's words was still there, but beneath it, a spark of defiance began to glow. She thought about all the hours she had practiced in her small town, sometimes in the early morning before school because that was the only quiet time available. She remembered Mr. Kapoor's patient voice teaching her about rhythm and soul, telling her that technique could be learned, but genuine feeling could not be taught. She recalled the joy she felt when she finally mastered a difficult piece, the satisfaction of progress made through sheer determination. Maya opened her notebook and began to write. She listed her strengths and weaknesses honestly. Yes, she lacked formal training in many areas. Yes, she did not have the confidence that came from years of being told you were special. But she had something else. So, last were gone. She had hunger, the kind that comes from wanting something so badly that you are willing to work twice as hard to get it. She had authenticity, emotions, raw and real, because she had lived through struggles, not just performed them. By midnight, Maya had made a decision. She would participate in the competition, not to prove anything to Rhea or Karan or anyone else, but to prove something to herself. She would show herself that she belonged here, that her dream was valid regardless of where she came from. If she failed, at least she would fail trying, not wondering what might have been. The next morning, Maya walked to the registration desk with trembling hands but steady resolve. She filled out the form, her handwriting small and careful. The coordinator smiled at her encouragingly, unaware of the internal battle that had been fought to get to this moment. As Maya walked away, registration form submitted, she felt different, scared, yes, but also alive with purpose. The journey ahead would be difficult, but she was ready to begin. The practice room Maya managed to book was the smallest one, tucked away in the basement of the arts building. It had a slightly out-of-tune piano, mirrors with cracks running through them, and fluorescent lights that flickered occasionally. The bigger, better-equipped rooms were always taken by senior students or those with connections. This small space became her sanctuary, her battlefield, her place of transformation. She started going there every day after classes, sometimes staying until the security guard gently reminded her that the building was closing. Her days developed a rhythm. Morning classes, where she took notes furiously. Afternoon practice sessions. Quick meals of bread and fruit to save money. And then more practice until exhaustion forced her to stop. On weekends, when most students went home or socialized, Maya spent entire days in that basement room. The competition was 6 weeks away, and Maya knew she needed to create something special. She could not compete with others on technique alone. Many of them had been perfecting their skills since childhood with the best teachers money could buy. She needed to offer something different, something that came from a place they could not access through training alone. She decided to create a performance that told a story, her story, woven through music and movement. The piece she began developing was about transformation. It started with soft, hesitant notes, representing doubt and fear, then gradually built into something stronger and more confident. She incorporated elements from her small town, rhythms she had heard in local festivals, melodies her grandmother used to hum while cooking. These sounds felt authentic to her, pieces of her identity she had sometimes hidden away, thinking they were not sophisticated enough for her new environment. But incorporating dance with music proved challenging. Maya had basic training in classical dance, but nothing advanced. She watched videos online, trying to teach herself movements that professional dancers made look effortless. In the privacy of her practice room, she stumbled and fell, got up, and tried again. Her legs ached, Her feet developed blisters, and there were moments when frustration brought tears to her eyes. The mirror reflected every mistake, every awkward angle, every moment of clumsiness. One evening, as she practiced a particularly difficult spin, she lost her balance and crashed into the piano. The resulting discordant sound seemed to mock her efforts. Maya sat on the floor, breathing heavily, and let herself feel the full weight of her doubts. Maybe Rhea was right. Maybe she was fooling herself. Maybe coming from a small town with limited training meant she would always be several steps behind. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother, asking how she was doing and reminding her to eat properly. There was also a photo attached, showing her father standing proudly in front of their store, a new sign recently painted with money they had saved. The caption read, "Papa got the sign repaired. He says it looks professional now, just like his daughter." The simple message broke something open inside Maya. Her parents believed in her completely, without doubt, without conditions. Could she not believe in herself the same way? Maya stood up, wiped her face, and looked at her reflection again. This time she saw not just the mistakes but also the determination in her eyes. The way her body had already started responding better to the movements after weeks of practice. She was improving, slowly, painfully, but genuinely. She took a deep breath and started the sequence again. As days passed, word began to spread about who was participating in the competition. Rhea was doing a classical fusion piece, choreographed by her mother. Karan was performing a complex musical composition on multiple instruments, accompanied by professional musicians his family had hired. Others had equally impressive plans, backed by resources and experience. Maya heard these updates in passing conversations and felt the familiar flutter of anxiety. But she pushed through it, focusing on her own work. Then came an unexpected encounter. Maya was leaving her practice room late one evening when she ran into Professor Sharma in the hallway. The older woman looked surprised to see anyone there so late. She asked Maya what she was working on so intensely. Maya, tired and with her guard down, found herself explaining her concept, her voice gaining enthusiasm as she described the piece she was creating. Professor Sharma listened carefully, her expression thoughtful. When Maya finished, the professor was quiet for a moment. Then, she said something that Maya would remember forever. She told Maya that the most memorable performances were not always the most technically perfect ones. They were the ones where the performer poured genuine emotion into every movement, every note. She said that authenticity had a power that audiences could feel, even if they could not explain it. Before walking away, she added that she would be interested to see what Maya created. The encouragement fueled Maya for the next few days. But then came a setback. During a regular dance class, students were asked to demonstrate a sequence they had learned. When Maya's turn came, she performed competently but without the grace that some others displayed. As she returned to her spot, she caught sight of Rhea, whispering to her friends, barely hiding her amused smile. Another student, emboldened by Rhea's reaction, made a loud comment about how some people looked uncomfortable, even with basic moves, questioning how they would handle actual performances. The instructor firmly told the class to focus on their own work rather than judging others, but the damage was done. Maya felt her confidence shake. That afternoon, she considered withdrawing from the competition. The registration deadline for changes had not passed yet. She could pull out, save herself from potential public embarrassment, continue being the quiet girl in the corner who did not make waves or attempt things beyond her reach. She walked around the campus aimlessly, ending up near the main auditorium where the competition would be held. Through the glass doors, she could see the large stage, the professional lighting setup, rows and rows of seats. This was where she would have to perform in front of hundreds of people, including the famous director, all her classmates, the professors who would judge her. The thought was terrifying, but as Maya stood there, she remembered something Mr. Kapoor had told her during one of their last lessons before she left for college. He had said that courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. He had told her that she had a gift not just for music, but for feeling deeply and expressing those feelings honestly. He had made her promise not to let anyone dim that light inside her. Maya made a decision right there. She would not withdraw. She would see this through, regardless of the outcome. Even if she stumbled on stage, even if people laughed, even if she placed last in the competition, she would have the satisfaction of knowing she tried. She was tired of playing small, tired of letting fear and other people's opinions dictate her choices. Walking back to her dorm, Maya felt something shift in her spine, a straightening of her shoulders, a lifting of her head. The mocking words still hurt, the doubts still whispered in quiet moments, but they no longer had the power to stop her. She had found something stronger than fear, a determination forged through struggle, a commitment to her own voice, regardless of who tried to silence it. The real work was just beginning. With 4 weeks remaining until the competition, Maya threw herself into preparation with renewed intensity. She created a detailed schedule, breaking down each element of her performance into manageable sections. Morning hours before class were dedicated to physical training, improving her flexibility and stamina. Afternoons focused on the musical components, practicing until her fingers moved across the piano keys with muscle memory rather than conscious thought. Evenings were for integrating everything together, merging music and movement into a cohesive whole. The challenge was immense. Unlike other competitors who had teams helping them, choreographers refining their moves, and musicians to accompany them, Maya worked alone. Every decision was hers to make. Every mistake was hers to correct. There was no one to offer immediate feedback, no experienced eye to catch errors before they became habits. But this solitude also meant freedom. She answered to no one's vision but her own, compromised for no one's expectations but her standards. Maya began recording her practice sessions on her phone, then watching them back with critical eyes. It was uncomfortable seeing herself on screen, noting every flaw and imperfection. But it was also educational. She noticed patterns in her mistakes, identified weak transitions between movements, recognized moments where her emotional expression did not match the music. Slowly, painstakingly, she made adjustments. The costume posed another challenge. Other participants were getting elaborate outfits designed, spending thousands on professional tailors and expensive fabrics. Maya had a budget that could barely cover a decent ready-made dress. She visited several shops, feeling increasingly discouraged by the prices. Finally, she found a simple outfit in a color that complemented her skin tone. It was plain, nothing fancy, but it was clean and allowed her to move freely. She added small touches herself, sewing on some beadwork borrowed from an old scarf her grandmother had given her. The result was not glamorous, but it felt authentic, another piece of her story woven into the performance. As the weeks progressed, Maya noticed changes in herself beyond just improved skills. She walked differently now, with more purpose. She spoke up occasionally in classes, offering observations she would have kept silent about before. The constant practice had made her body stronger, more responsive. Her arms no longer felt weak after extended piano playing. Her legs could hold difficult dance positions longer. Small victories, but they accumulated into something significant. However, the social dynamics at college remained challenging. Ria's group continued their subtle mockery. One day, in the cafeteria, Maya overheard them discussing competition predictions. Ria confidently declared she would place first or second, with Karan likely taking the other top spot. Someone asked who else might do well, and another voice mentioned a few names of students from prominent backgrounds. Maya's name never came up. She might as well have been invisible in their calculation of serious competitors. The invisibility stung, but it also liberated her. If they did not see her as a threat, they would not pay attention to what she was preparing. She could develop her performance without the pressure of others analyzing or criticizing it beforehand. Let them be surprised when the time came, or let them remain unimpressed. Either way, Maya was no longer performing for their approval. She did make one unexpected friend during this period. Arjun was a technical student who managed the sound and lighting for college events. He was quiet like Maya, preferring equipment and technology to social drama. They met when Maya asked if she could familiarize herself with the stage setup during a free period. Arjun had been adjusting some lighting and agreed to help her understand the technical aspects she would encounter during her performance. As they talked, Arjun mentioned he had seen her practicing through the small window of her practice room while doing maintenance rounds. He said he was impressed by her dedication, noting that she was there more consistently than anyone else he had observed. Maya felt embarrassed being watched without knowing, but also touched by the genuine compliment. Unlike the fake praise she sometimes received from people who pitied her background, Arjun's words felt honest. Arjun offered to help her with music mixing and suggested optimal lighting for her performance theme. Maya was overwhelmed by the kindness. She had grown so used to struggling alone that help felt almost foreign. They started meeting occasionally, with Arjun providing technical guidance that enhanced her work. He never overstepped, never tried to change her vision, just offered tools to realize it more effectively. For the first time since registration, Maya felt like someone was in her corner. 2 weeks before the competition, mandatory rehearsals began. Each participant got stage time to practice with actual equipment. Maya's slot was early morning on a Tuesday, one of the least convenient times. She suspected the scheduling was not accidental, prime times going to more prominent students. But she showed up, her body tired from late-night practice, but her mind alert. Walking onto that large stage for the first time was surreal. The empty auditorium seats seemed to stretch endlessly. The lights were bright and hot. The space was so much bigger than her cramped practice room. Maya felt small, exposed, vulnerable. In 2 weeks, she would stand here in front of hundreds of critical eyes, performing something deeply personal, risking public failure. Arjun was in the control booth, setting up her music track. He gave her a thumbs up, a simple gesture that steadied her nerves. Maya took a deep breath and nodded. The music started. Those opening notes she had listened to hundreds of times. And then she began. The rehearsal was rough. Without the intimate confines of her practice room, some movements felt wrong. The stage dimensions threw off her spatial awareness. She missed a step, fumbled a transition, but she kept going, pushing through the mistakes. When the music ended, she stood there breathing heavily, disappointed with how it had gone, but also proud that she had completed it without stopping. From the back of the auditorium came an unexpected sound. Slow, clapping. Maya shielded her eyes from the stage lights and saw Professor Sharma sitting in one of the rear seats. The professor had apparently been observing quietly. She walked down the aisle, her footsteps echoing in the empty space. When she reached the front, she looked up at Maya, with an expression that was hard to read. Professor Sharma said the performance needed work, pointing out specific technical issues that required attention. But then she said something else. She told Maya that she had felt something authentic in the performance, a genuine emotional core that many technically superior students lacked. She advised Maya to trust that authenticity, to refine the technical aspects but not at the cost of losing the heart that made the piece special. She reminded Maya that the stage had space for many kinds of excellence, not just one narrow definition of perfection. As Professor Sharma left, Maya sat down right there on the stage floor, letting the words sink in. Someone whose opinion she respected had seen value in her work. Not pity, not encouragement based on effort alone, but actual artistic merit. The validation did not erase her doubts completely, but it strengthened her resolve. She had 2 weeks to polish everything, to address the technical weaknesses while preserving the emotional truth that gave her performance its power. Maya left the auditorium that morning with renewed determination. The rehearsal had shown her exactly what needed improvement. Now it was about execution, about putting in the hours to transform rough edges into refined lines. She thought about Ria's confident predictions, about being dismissed and underestimated. Let them think what they wanted. Maya would let her performance speak for itself. The final 2 weeks became a blur of intense preparation. Maya's life narrowed to 3 things: Classes she could not skip, practice sessions that consumed every free moment, and brief periods of sleep that were never quite enough. Her roommate expressed concern about her health, noticing dark circles under Maya's eyes and how she sometimes fell asleep fully clothed on top of her bed. But Maya could not slow down. Every time she thought about resting, she imagined standing on that stage unprepared, fumbling in front of everyone who already doubted her abilities. She refined every second of her performance based on the rehearsal feedback. The transition that had felt awkward was smoothed out through repetition. The spatial awareness issues were solved by visualizing the stage dimensions during her practice room sessions. She worked on her facial expressions, ensuring they conveyed the emotional journey of the piece rather than just the concentration of someone trying to remember choreography. Details that most people might never notice became subjects of intense focus. Arjun continued to be a quiet source of support. He fine-tuned her music track, adjusting levels to ensure every note would carry clearly through the auditorium. He helped her test different lighting scenarios, finding combinations that enhanced the mood of each section. They worked together in comfortable silence, both understanding the language of dedication and craft. When Maya expressed anxiety, Arjun did not offer empty reassurances. Instead, he simply reminded her of how much progress she had made, how different her performance looked now compared to weeks ago. 1 week before the competition, Maya called home. She had been avoiding calls, afraid that hearing her parents' voices would break her focus or make her emotional. But she needed to hear them, needed that connection, to remember why she was pushing herself so hard. Her mother answered, excited to hear from her. They talked about ordinary things, the store, neighborhood gossip, her younger brother's school activities. Maya did not mention the competition, not wanting to add pressure by raising their expectations, but somehow her mother sensed something was happening. Mothers have that ability, reading emotions through tone of voice across phone lines. She asked if Maya was okay, if something was troubling her. Maya hesitated, then found herself explaining about the competition, about the preparation, about feeling scared and hopeful at the same time. She did not mention the mocking or the doubts others had expressed. Some burdens were hers alone to carry. Her mother listened quietly, then spoke with the simple wisdom that comes from living a hard life with grace. She told Maya that success was not about proving anything to anyone else. It was about honoring your own potential, about giving your best effort regardless of outcomes. She said that Maya had already made them proud by having the courage to pursue her dreams, and nothing that happened on stage could change that fundamental truth. Her father took the phone briefly, his voice thick with emotion, telling her he knew she would make them proud because she always had. After the call ended, Maya sat in her small room and cried, not from sadness or fear, but from the overwhelming love her parents had for her. The unconditional support that asked nothing in return except that she be true to herself. She cried for the sacrifices they had made, for the belief they maintained even when she doubted herself, for the simple beauty of being loved so completely. When the tears stopped, she felt cleansed, lighter, ready for the final push. The college atmosphere grew electric as competition day approached. Hallways buzzed with excitement and nervous energy. Students who were performing walked around with a particular tension in their shoulders, that mix of anxiety and anticipation. Those not participating were choosing favorites, placing informal bets on outcomes, analyzing who had the best chances. Maya observed it all from her usual peripheral position, neither fully included nor completely excluded from the social dynamics. 3 days before the event, a list was posted showing the performance order. Maya was scheduled in the middle of the lineup, which she considered both good and bad. She would not have to deal with the pressure of opening or closing the show, but she would also have to sit through several other performances while waiting, her nervousness building. Ria had drawn one of the final slots, a prime position that generated envious comments from other competitors. Of course, people said, luck even favored the already privileged. The night before the competition, Maya did something counterintuitive. Instead of practicing until midnight, as she had been doing, she stopped early. She had read somewhere that athletes rested before major competitions, trusting their training rather than cramming at the last minute. She took a long shower, did some gentle stretching, and tried to clear her mind. Sleep was elusive. Her body, too accustomed to constant activity. Her mind too full of anticipation. But she lay in bed with eyes closed, breathing deeply, visualizing herself performing perfectly. Competition morning arrived with bright sunshine that seemed inappropriately cheerful for Maya's nervous state. She woke early, despite the restless night. Her stomach too tight for breakfast. Her roommate wished her good luck with genuine warmth, having witnessed the dedication Maya had poured into preparation. Maya dressed carefully in her simple outfit, adding the beadwork from her grandmother's scarf. Looking in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She looked different. Older, somehow, more defined. The backstage area was controlled chaos when Maya arrived. Performers in elaborate costumes rushed around. Vocal coaches gave last-minute instructions. Makeup artists perfected faces. And nervous energy filled the air like electricity before a storm. Maya found a quiet corner and sat down, closing her eyes and breathing deeply. She could hear Ria's voice across the room, confident and loud. Laughing with her group, someone mentioned that the famous director had arrived, and excited whispers spread through the crowd. Arjun found her in her corner and crouched down beside her. He did not say much, just checked if she needed anything for her technical setup. But his calm presence was grounding. He told her that her lighting and sound were all set, tested, and ready. He said he would be in the control booth watching, and she should trust that the technical side was handled. Then he said something that surprised her. He told her he had watched many performances over the years, and hers had something special. He said not to let the fancy costumes and expensive productions intimidate her. Real art, he said, came from the heart, not the wallet. The announcement came that the auditorium was filling up and performers needed to be ready. Maya peeked through the stage curtain and saw hundreds of people taking their seats. Students, professors, parents, and somewhere among them, the director whose opinion could change lives. Her hands began to shake. This was happening. There was no turning back now. In a few hours, she would walk onto that stage and reveal something deeply personal to all these people, making herself vulnerable in the most public way possible. A stage manager started calling performers, organizing them in performance order. Maya took her place in line. Surrounded by elaborate costumes and confident faces, she felt plain in comparison. Small and insignificant. But then she remembered Professor Sharma's words about authenticity, her mother's reminder about honoring her own potential, Mr. Kapoor's belief in her gift. She straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. She might not look like the other performers, but she had something equally valuable. She had worked for this moment with everything she had. Now it was time to show what that work had created. The competition began with an opening speech from the college principal, welcoming everyone and introducing the panel of judges. Maya watched from backstage as the famous director was introduced, a distinguished-looking person with silver hair and an intense gaze that seemed to see everything. The audience applauded respectfully. Maya's stomach clenched tighter. That person would be watching her, judging her, someone whose single opinion could validate or destroy months of work. The first performer took the stage, a senior student doing a classical dance piece. It was technically flawless, every movement precise and controlled. The audience clapped enthusiastically when it ended. Maya watched on the backstage monitor, her nervousness increasing. How could she compete with such polished perfection? The second performance was equally impressive, a musical composition that showcased extraordinary skill. Each successful performance added weight to Maya's anxiety. She was fifth in the lineup. As the fourth performer took the stage, Maya moved to the wings, ready for her turn. Her heart pounded so hard she wondered if others could hear it. Her mouth felt dry, her hands cold despite the warmth backstage. She tried to remember her opening position, and for a terrifying moment, her mind went blank. Panic rose like a wave. What if she forgot everything the moment she stepped into the lights? Then Arjun's voice came through the small earpiece he had given her for technical coordination. He was not supposed to use it for personal communication. But he quietly said her name and reminded her to breathe. He told her he believed in her. Those simple words cut through the panic. Maya took a deep breath, then another. The fourth performance ended to strong applause. The stage manager looked at her and nodded. It was time. Walking onto that stage felt surreal, like moving through water. The lights were blinding at first, making the audience invisible beyond the first few rows. Maya reached her starting position, a simple pose with her head bowed, hands folded. The auditorium fell silent, hundreds of people waiting. In that moment of absolute quiet, Maya heard her own breath, felt her own heartbeat, and made a choice. She chose to be present, to trust her preparation, to honor everything that had brought her to this moment. The music began, those opening notes she knew so well. Maya moved, her body responding to rhythms practiced 1,000 times. The beginning section represented doubt and limitation. Movements contained and hesitant. She poured genuine emotion into it, remembering every moment she had felt small, every time someone had dismissed her potential. The dance was not just choreography, but lived experience translated into motion. As the music progressed, the movements opened up, becoming more confident and expansive. This represented the journey of finding her voice, of pushing past fear. Maya forgot about the audience, forgot about judges and competition. She was inside the story she was telling, living it through her body. A particularly challenging spin sequence approached, one she had struggled with for weeks. In practice, just yesterday, she had finally nailed it consistently. Now, under pressure, she executed it perfectly, her body remembering through muscle and determination. The musical section came next. Maya moved to the piano, positioned on stage, and began to play. Her fingers found the keys with certainty, producing the melody she had composed. It was not the most complex piece technically, but it carried emotion in every note. She had poured her heart into this composition, every chord reflecting something real from her life. The folk rhythms from her hometown wove through it, sounds that some might consider unsophisticated but that represented her truth, her roots, her identity. As she played, Maya sang softly, her voice blending with the piano. The lyrics were about transformation, about finding light in darkness, about the courage it takes to try when success is not guaranteed. Her voice was not professionally trained, did not have the power of some other performers. But it carried something else. It carried honesty, vulnerability, the raw emotion of someone who had lived these words, rather than just performed them. The final section integrated everything, dance and music merging into a climax that represented emergence, becoming, transformation complete. Maya's movements were strong now, claiming space on the stage with confidence she had built through endless hours of practice. She hit every mark, every transition, every emotional beat she had planned. The performance was not technically perfect by classical standards, but it was wholly, completely hers. The music ended with Maya in a final pose, arms outstretched, head lifted, a physical embodiment of triumph over doubt. For a moment, there was silence. Complete, absolute silence. Maya's heart sank. Had it been terrible? Were people too shocked by how bad it was to even clap politely? She lowered her arms slowly, preparing herself for humiliation. Then the applause started. It began with a few people and quickly spread through the auditorium like wildfire. People were not just clapping politely. They were applauding with enthusiasm, with energy. Some were standing up. Maya stood on stage, confused, overwhelmed, unable to process what was happening. She had expected tolerance at best, mockery at worst. This response was beyond anything she had imagined. She bowed awkwardly, still not quite believing what she was hearing, and walked off stage on shaky legs. In the wings, the stage manager gave her a thumbs up with a genuine smile. Other performers waiting for their turns looked at her with expressions ranging from surprise to respect. Maya made her way back to the holding area, feeling disconnected from her body, as if watching herself from outside. Arjun met her there, his usually composed face broken into a wide grin. He told her it was amazing, that she could feel the emotion from the control booth, that people around him had been completely absorbed. Maya still could not quite process it. She had done it. She had actually done it. She had walked onto that stage despite every fear, every doubt, every mocking word, and she had given a performance that people responded to. She found a chair and sat down, her body suddenly exhausted as adrenaline drained away. She watched the remaining performances on the monitor. They were impressive, technically superior to hers in many ways. Ria's performance, when it came, was spectacular. The choreography was complex and executed flawlessly. The costumes stunning. The production value evident in every moment. The audience applauded enthusiastically. Maya could acknowledge its excellence without letting it diminish what she had accomplished. More performances followed, each unique, each showcasing different talents and approaches. The level of skill in the room was extraordinary. Maya watched them all, no longer comparing herself in that destructive way she once had, but appreciating the diversity of artistic expression. She had learned something important through this process. There was room for many kinds of excellence, many ways to touch an audience, many valid artistic voices. When the final performer finished, the principal took the stage again and announced a break before results would be revealed. The judges needed time to deliberate. Performers and audience members filed out to the lobby and surrounding areas. Maya stayed in her seat, too drained to move, processing everything that had happened. She thought about where she had been months ago, a scared girl hiding in corners, and where she was now, someone who had faced her fears and survived. Regardless of what the judges decided, she had already won something more important than a competition. She had won back belief in herself. Professor Sharma found her sitting there and sat down in the next chair. She did not say much, just that it was a brave and honest performance, and that Maya should be proud regardless of the results. The professor's presence was comforting, a quiet acknowledgement of shared understanding. They sat together in companionable silence until the announcement came that everyone should return to the auditorium. It was time for results. The auditorium filled again with nervous energy. Performers sat in designated front rows, each person trying to appear calm, while anxiety rolled off them in waves. Maya found herself sitting between students she barely knew, all of them united in this moment of anticipation. Behind them, the audience settled in, conversations creating a low hum that filled the space. Maya's hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her nails digging into her palms. The principal returned to the stage, holding an envelope. The dramatic presentation was tradition, building suspense before announcing results. Maya felt disconnected from her body again, as if floating somewhere above it all. Part of her did not want to know the results, wanted to preserve this moment where anything was still possible. Once names were announced, reality would set in, and she would have to face whatever that reality was. The principal began by thanking everyone for their participation, praising the overall quality of performances. Standard speeches that felt endless when you were waiting for information that might change your life. Then the announcement of special mentions. Students whose performances had stood out in particular ways. Several names were called. Students going up to receive certificates. Maya was not among them, and she felt the first sting of disappointment even as she reminded herself she had not expected to place at all. Third place was announced. A senior student who had performed a contemporary dance piece. Deserved recognition. The performance had been stunning. The student went up beaming, accepting the trophy and scholarship certificate. 2 places left. Maya's heart rate increased. She told herself not to hope. That hope would only make disappointment harder. But the traitorous organ in her chest hoped anyway, despite her mind's warnings. Second place. The principal opened another envelope, drawing out the moment. The name announced was Karan. His musical composition had indeed been impressive. The technical skill undeniable. He walked to the stage with a confident smile that suggested he had expected this or better. His family in the audience applauded loudly, pride evident in their faces. One place left. First place, the scholarship, the opportunity to perform professionally, the validation that launched careers. Maya's breath felt stuck in her chest. The auditorium seemed too quiet. Or maybe her hearing had become selective, filtering out everything except the sound of her own blood rushing through her ears. She watched the principal hold up the final envelope, the most important one. This would go to someone deserving. Someone who had trained their whole life for such recognition. Someone whose performance had been technically superior in every measurable way. The principal opened the envelope and looked at the name. A slight smile crossed her face before she spoke. She began by saying that this year's decision had been particularly challenging because of the variety of excellent performances. She said the judges had deliberated carefully, weighing technical skill against emotional impact, polish against authenticity. She mentioned that sometimes the most memorable performance was not necessarily the most technically perfect, but the one that moved people, that told a story worth hearing. Then she said Maya's name. For a moment, Maya did not move, convinced she had misheard. People around her were turning to look at her, some smiling, some appearing shocked. The principal repeated the name, adding encouragement for her to come to the stage. Maya stood on legs that felt like they might give way. The walk to that stage was the longest of her life, longer than her first walk onto it for her performance. This felt surreal, impossible, like a dream that would dissolve when she tried to touch it, but it was real. She reached the stage, and the principal handed her the trophy, heavy and solid in her hands. The scholarship certificate followed, paper that represented opportunities she had thought were beyond her reach. The applause was loud, enthusiastic, washing over her in waves. Maya stood there holding these symbols of achievement, tears streaming down her face before she could stop them. She had not meant to cry in front of everyone, but the emotions were too overwhelming to contain. The famous director stood and approached the stage. This was not part of the standard program, and the auditorium fell quiet with interest. The director took the microphone and addressed the audience. The words would stay with Maya forever. The director spoke about authenticity in art, about how technique could be taught, but genuine emotion could not be manufactured. The director said Maya's performance had stood out because it told a real story with honest emotion, something that resonated more deeply than technical perfection alone could achieve. The director then turned to Maya directly and said something that broke and rebuilt her simultaneously. The director mentioned that they had come from humble beginnings too, knew what it meant to be underestimated, understood the courage it took to put yourself forward when others doubted you deserved to be there. The director said that performances like Maya's reminded everyone why art mattered, why stories needed to be told, why diverse voices enriched the artistic landscape. The director offered to mentor Maya personally if she was interested, an opportunity that several students in the audience audibly gasped at. Maya could only nod, unable to form words. The director smiled, shook her hand, and returned to their seat. The principal concluded the ceremony, congratulating all participants again. As the formal program ended, people began standing, the auditorium transitioning from structured event to social gathering. Maya remained on stage for a moment, still processing, still holding her trophy like a lifeline. Then students began approaching her. Some she knew casually, others she had never spoken to. They offered congratulations, shared how her performance had moved them, asked about her background and training. The attention was overwhelming after so long being invisible. Maya answered questions in a daze, accepting compliments she still could not quite believe were meant for her. Arjun pushed through the crowd and hugged her impulsively, then stepped back looking embarrassed but happy. He told her he had known she could do it, that her dedication had deserved this recognition. Professor Sharma appeared next, pride evident in her expression. She did not say much, just squeezed Maya's shoulder in a gesture that communicated everything words could not. Then Ria appeared, her expression complex. The confident mask she usually wore had cracked slightly, revealing something more human underneath. She stood there for a moment, seeming to struggle with what to say. Finally, she offered a quiet congratulations that sounded genuine, if reluctant. She admitted that she had underestimated Maya, that the performance had been moving in ways her own technically superior piece had not been. It was not a full apology for the mocking words, but it was acknowledgement, a recognition that she had been wrong. Maya accepted it gracefully, without bitterness or triumph. She had not done this to prove Ria wrong, had not performed to gain revenge for dismissive comments. She had done it for herself, to prove to herself that she belonged here, that her voice mattered, that her dreams were valid. Ria's recognition was satisfying, but not necessary. Maya's validation had come from within, forged through struggle and sustained through determination. Her parents called in the evening, having heard the news from Maya's emotional phone call right after the ceremony. Her mother cried happy tears. Her father's voice was thick with pride. Her brother shouted excitedly in the background. They talked for a long time, Maya describing every detail, her family celebrating as if they were there. Her mother said something that captured everything perfectly. She said she had always known Maya was special, not because of talent alone, but because of her heart, her persistence, her refusal to give up even when things were hard. That night, lying in her small dorm room, with the trophy on her desk catching moonlight from the window, Maya reflected on the journey, from the girl hiding in corners to the person who had stood on stage and shared her truth with hundreds of people. From being mocked and doubted, to being recognized and valued. The external validation was wonderful, but what mattered most was the internal transformation. She had discovered strength she did not know she possessed, had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but action, despite it. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The scholarship meant new responsibilities. The director's mentorship meant higher expectations. Success meant pressure to maintain and build on what she had achieved. But tonight, she allowed herself to simply feel proud, to bask in the glow of accomplishment earned through blood, sweat, tears, and unshakable determination. She had turned mockery into motivation, doubt into determination, and created something beautiful from the raw material of her authentic self. The days following the competition brought changes Maya had not anticipated. She walked through campus, and people recognized her now, called out greetings, wanted to talk. The anonymity she had grown accustomed to was gone, replaced by a visibility that felt both validating and uncomfortable. She was still the same person, still preferred quiet practice rooms to loud parties, still wore simple clothes, and lived in the small dorm room. But others saw her differently now, and that shift in perception took adjustment. The scholarship money meant immediate practical relief. Maya could buy better practice clothes, afford proper meals instead of surviving on bread and fruit, even send some money home to help her parents. The financial stress that had been a constant background hum in her life eased slightly. She bought her mother a gift, a shawl she had admired in a shop window, and shipped it home with a note, thanking her for everything. Her mother called crying when she received it, insisting Maya should save money for herself. But Maya could hear the happiness in her voice. The mentorship with the famous director began 2 weeks after the competition. Their first meeting was at a cafe near the college, a casual setting that helped ease Maya's nervousness. The director was different one-on-one than on stage, more relaxed, asking questions about Maya's background and goals. They discussed her performance in detail, praising what worked while offering constructive feedback on areas to develop. The director shared stories from their own early career, struggles and failures that had ultimately led to success. What struck Maya most was how the director emphasized the importance of maintaining authenticity while developing technical skills. They warned against the trap of trying to become what others expected, losing the unique voice that had made her performance special. The director said the industry was full of technically perfect performers, but audiences craved genuine connection, real emotion, stories that resonated with lived experience. Maya's job was to refine her craft without polishing away the rough edges that made her work distinctive. They established a mentorship schedule, meeting regularly to work on various aspects of performance. The director introduced Maya to industry professionals, opened doors that would have remained closed otherwise. But the mentorship was not just about connections. It was about learning to navigate the professional world while staying true to yourself, understanding the business without becoming cynical, developing confidence without arrogance. Maya's relationships at college evolved as well. Rhea never became a close friend. Their personalities and backgrounds too different. But the open hostility dissolved, replaced by mutual respect. They occasionally worked together on class projects, their different strengths complementing each other. Rhea learned that talent came in many forms, that privilege provided advantages, but not guarantees. Maya learned that people who seemed confidently superior often had their own insecurities and struggles hidden beneath polished exteriors. Karan, who had placed second, initially kept his distance, his ego bruised by being outperformed by someone he had dismissed. But gradually, his curiosity overcame pride. He asked Maya about her compositional process, genuinely interested in how she created music without formal theory training. They had long conversations about art, technique versus emotion, the role of academic training versus intuitive creation. A friendship formed based on shared passion for their craft, both learning from perspectives different from their own. Arjun remained her closest friend, the one person who had believed in her before success made belief easy. They still met in technical booths and practice rooms, conversations flowing easily without need for performance or pretense. Arjun was working on his own projects now, documenting performances and creating artistic films. Maya appeared in some of his work. Their collaboration, natural and productive. He understood her in ways others did not, knew the person beneath the emerging public persona. The professional performance that came with winning the competition took place 3 months later at a prestigious venue in the city. Maya stood backstage in that grand theater, feeling echoes of competition day nerves but with added confidence earned through experience. The audience included industry professionals, critics, people whose opinions carried weight. The stakes felt higher, but so did Maya's belief in herself. She performed a refined version of her winning piece, incorporating improvements suggested by the director while maintaining its emotional core. The response was powerful, leading to reviews in arts publications. Critics mentioned her authentic voice, her ability to connect emotionally with audiences, her potential for significant impact in the industry. Not all reviews were perfect. Some noted technical areas needing development, but the overall response validated that her success had not been a fluke, that she had genuine, artistic value to offer. Opportunities began appearing. Invitations to perform at other venues, interest from agents, possibilities for collaborative projects. Maya approached them carefully, guided by the director's mentorship, learning to distinguish genuine opportunities from exploitation, to value herself appropriately, to make strategic choices rather than accepting everything from gratitude or insecurity. She was building a career, not just collecting experiences, but success also brought challenges she had not anticipated. Some people dismissed her achievement, suggesting she had won through sympathy for her background rather than merit. Others placed her on a pedestal, expecting every performance to be transcendent, unable to accept that artists have off days and works in progress. The pressure to constantly prove herself was exhausting. There were moments when Maya missed anonymity, when visibility felt like burden rather than blessing. She learned to navigate these challenges with support from her growing network. The director taught her to handle criticism professionally, to extract useful feedback while dismissing opinions rooted in bias or ignorance. Professor Sharma reminded her that sustainable careers were built on consistent work rather than single brilliant moments. Her parents provided unconditional support, loving her regardless of success or failure, keeping her grounded in what truly mattered. Maya also made deliberate efforts to help other students facing similar struggles she had experienced. She started informal mentoring sessions, sharing her journey honestly, including failures and doubts alongside successes. She advocated for scholarship programs supporting students from modest backgrounds, using her platform to address systemic barriers. When she saw someone being dismissed or underestimated, she remembered how that felt and offered encouragement, sometimes just acknowledging their effort when no one else did. A year after the competition, Maya stood again in her old practice room, the small basement space where so much of her transformation had occurred. She had access to better facilities now, could reserve premium rooms whenever needed. But she came back here occasionally, drawn by nostalgia and the reminder of where she had started. The cracked mirrors reflected someone who looked like the girl who had first entered this room but was fundamentally changed by everything that had transpired. She thought about the journey from that first moment of decision, when she had chosen to participate despite fear and doubt, to where she stood now with opportunities unfolding before her. The mocking words that had once wounded now felt distant, powerless. Ria's dismissive laughter in the cafeteria seemed like something from another lifetime. Those words had not defined her. Her response to them had. Maya understood now that the competition had been important not because of the trophy or scholarship or recognition, though those were valuable. It had been important because it had forced her to confront every fear and insecurity. To choose courage repeatedly, when withdrawal would have been easier. To discover strengths she had not known she possessed. The performance itself was just a moment, but the person she had become through the preparation was permanent. She sat at the old piano in that practice room and played softly, the melody from her winning performance. It sounded different now, enriched by all the experiences since, but still recognizably hers. The notes carried her history, her struggle, her triumph, her continuing journey. She was no longer the girl who hid in corners, but neither had she become someone unrecognizable. She had simply become more fully herself. The future stretched ahead with uncertainty and possibility intertwined. There would be failures alongside successes, struggles mixed with triumphs, moments of doubt, balanced by moments of confidence. But Maya had learned the most important lesson. She had learned that she could face challenges and survive them, could be knocked down and get up, could be doubted and prove those doubts wrong, not through anger but through persistent, authentic work. As she left the practice room that day, Maya ran into a first-year student sitting alone in the hallway, looking lost and overwhelmed. The girl held a registration form for the upcoming talent showcase, her expression conflicted. Maya recognized something in her face, that mix of desire and fear, hope and doubt. She sat down next to the student and asked if she was okay. The girl explained that she wanted to participate but felt intimidated by other students who seemed so much more experienced and talented. She came from a small place, had limited training, was not sure she belonged here. The words were painfully familiar. Maya smiled, seeing her younger self reflected in this nervous student. She told the girl something true and important. She said that everyone belongs who has the courage to try, that talent develops through work, not birthright, that authenticity matters more than perfection. She shared her own story briefly. The doubt and mockery she had faced, the choice to participate anyway, the transformation that had followed. She did not promise success, did not offer false assurance that hard work guaranteed recognition, but she offered something more valuable. The knowledge that trying was worth it, regardless of outcomes, that growth happened through challenge, that courage could be found even in fear. The girl listened with widening eyes, her expression shifting as hope began to outweigh doubt. She asked if Maya really thought she should register. Maya looked at this student who reminded her so much of who she had been, and gave the only answer that mattered. She told her to listen to her own heart, to honor her own voice, to give herself the chance to discover what she was capable of. Then she stood up, squeezed the girl's shoulder encouragingly, and continued down the hallway. Walking away, Maya felt the circle completing itself. She had been lifted by others at crucial moments. By Mr. Kapoor's patient teaching, by Professor Sharma's recognition, by the director's mentorship, by Arjun's quiet support. Now she could extend that same support to others, could be for someone else what others had been for her. This was perhaps the deepest gift her journey had given her. Not just success, but the ability to help others find their own paths. The story that had begun with mocking and doubt had transformed into something beautiful. Not because the doubt disappeared, but because Maya had chosen to move through it, rather than let it stop her. She had turned their words not into weapons of revenge, but into fuel for transformation. She had proven that the girl from a small town with limited resources had something valuable to offer. Not despite her background, but enriched by it. As Maya walked across campus in the afternoon sunlight, she carried her story lightly but proudly. A reminder of distance traveled, and proof that journeys worth taking are rarely easy. She had been mocked and doubted, yes, but she had responded by becoming exactly who she was meant to be, and in doing so, had created a performance more stunning than anyone, including herself, had imagined possible.